We live in a time when intelligent people are being silenced, so stupid people won't be offended. This is the news for yous.
Hello and welcome to the News for Yous, monthly roundup, bringing you the news and non-news news networks refuse to use. I'm your host, Wayne Darnell. Top stories from February. First up, lest we forget, Canada. If you live in a diving bell or have accidentally been locked in a nuclear fallout shelter 100 feet underground, or indeed you receive your news from the mainstream media, you're probably completely unaware that the month of February 2022 kicked off with the biggest trucker convoy the world has ever seen. Fact checked. Fact checked. Fact checked. Fact checked. Fact checked. Fact checked. Fact checked.
I said I like big trucks and I can't lie. Yes, I like big trucks and I cannot lie. I said, Lord have mercy till the day I die. I like big trucks and I cannot lie. You know I like big trucks and I can't lie.
Involving thousands of trucks and freedom protesters from across Canada. Initially, the mainstream media chose to ignore it. But eventually, it got too big, at which point the media labelled the peaceful freedom protesters right-wing extremists, including the Canadian dictator, Justin Castro, who went on to accuse them of racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, transphobia.
Small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views.
LGBTQ2+.
Before he ran off and hid, as the trucks began to roll into Ottawa. At which point the protest was too big to cover up, as people around the world found out where Ottawa is, including me. But as the truckers dug in, some accused them of being Nazis with their all-night honking.
HONK, HONK, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler.
So, what were the protests about?
The message is freedom for every Canadian.
Donations towards the protests came from across Canada and the world, which the government later went on to steal.
Financial institutions will be authorized or directed to render essential services to help address the situation, including by regulating and prohibiting the use of property to fund or support illegal blockades.
Fearing that more Canadians would wake up and demand their freedoms back from an authoritarian government, Trudeau introduced martial law.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
Unfortunately, it was too late for the dictator, as one after the other, Canadian provinces, feeling the sea change with their public, began to roll back the draconian COVID measures.
It's time for each of us as individuals now to make a conscious effort to treat everyone in our daily lives that we encounter equally. It's also time for the proof of vaccination mandate to end. So effective at midnight this Sunday, February the 13th, all provincial proof of vaccination requirements will end.
We can't stay in this position forever. We got to learn to live with this and get on with our life. Everyone's done with this. Like, we are done with it. Let's start moving on and cautiously, and you know, we've followed the rules, all of us, like 90% of us, for over 2 years. The world's done with it, so let's just move forward.
Eventually, Trudeau called in the New World Order police, and the protest was broken up. Later in the month, Trudeau went on to make a speech highlighting the importance of protesting for freedom in other countries.
We've talked about it in the news, not just about Ukraine, but about democracies around the world, that we see a bit of a slippage in our democracies. Countries turning towards slightly more authoritarian leaders.
Although the peaceful freedom convoy was eventually violently broken up, the Canadian truckers have gone on to inspire, unite, and help wake up freedom-loving people from around the world, in spite of the mainstream media's attempts to censor, misrepresent the protests. World leaders were notable by their silence.
This is absolutely totalitarian behaviour that's been going on from the Trudeau government. It's a scandal that in an ordinary season would have been brought up at the United Nations, but the democracies of the world don't seem to be caring about it.
However, gobshite Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum wasn't.
The young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, half of this government, are actually young noble leaders of the World Economic Forum. We penetrate the cabinets.
The change is not just happening. The change can be shaped by us. We have to prepare for a more angry world. How to prepare? Take the necessary action to create a fairer world. I see the need for a great reset.
So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
There is only one way this pandemic is going to go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
The next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner, and it is the climate crisis.
And when questions were asked, this happened.
I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad and the video is really bad as well. And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay.
Since then, the protesters have been arrested, jailed, fined, and had their bank accounts frozen. Deputy Prime Minister and member of Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum explains.
A bank or other financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order.
For the moment, Trudeau's plans for the COVID or green passports and digital slavery have been thwarted. But for how long?
Bill S-233. Guaranteed basic income. This is the universal basic income for every communist nation. They tell you all that they need to raise everybody's taxes so they can provide welfare for every single person. Now, the best part is, if in order to get that welfare, you got to jump through all the hoops they want. They're going to create a national standard of health framework. Guess what's going to be in the national standard? Mandatory vaccinations. So now they're creating a Chinese-style social credit system under the guise of universal basic income and health measure reporting requirements.
I believe everyone has a right to face their accuser. Well, I am your accuser. Justin Trudeau, Jasmeet Singh, I accuse you of being empty-headed meat puppets under the complete control of foreign powers. I accuse you of treason of the highest order. To every police officer and every member of the Canadian military, I accuse you of dereliction of duty. And if you're wearing a uniform today, I accuse you of cowardice. What good is a police force that will not protect its citizens? To all in Parliament, I accuse you of
fraud and misrepresentation. You all swore an oath to represent Canadian citizens. All of you failed in that oath. All of you. To every Canadian who feels that the government was in any way justified in the actions this past weekend, I accuse you of being blind and stupid. I accuse you of turning your backs on your friends and your family and your neighbors. I am your accuser.
This is a public information film. If you or someone you know have been affected by any of the issues concerning the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, or if you want to find out more about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, digital ID, Green New Deal, or transhumanism, wake up. Do your own research and draw your own conclusions.
Hello?
Hello, is this number to phone if I've been affected by any of the issues in
Yes,
tonight's...
it is.
Right. Well, I've been affected by some of the issues in tonight's programme.
Oh, sorry to hear that, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for calling. Bye for now.
Alright. Bye.
Another World Economic Forum young global leader, New Zealand dictator Jacinda Ardern's authoritarian regime is beginning to buckle. Not only have the Kiwis been protesting outside Parliament, but the New Zealand High Court ended Jacinda's vaccine mandate, stating, and I quote, "It's a gross violation of human rights." This landmark case will be used to overthrow all of Ardern's illegal mandates in New Zealand. Here's a clip of her trying to spin her way out of her predicament.
Now, the court has decided that it's no longer justified because they have such high vaccination rates. And obviously you would assume the mandates having made a big difference there. There's only about 160 who weren't vaccinated. So they haven't made a decision that, for instance, it wasn't justified at the time that it was put in place. All I've questioned is whether or not it's needed now. We received it on Friday, so just doing a bit of work and looking at the judgment and making a call around what happens next.
Join us after the break.
What's my favorite thing about Boston winter? I love snow.
Welcome back. Ridiculous as it may seem now, February began with a tsunami of reasons why you might suffer a heart attack, according to the experts. The propaganda machine went into full overdrive with this one. According to the experts, heart attacks could be caused by everything, from making the bed to moving the clocks forward, skipping breakfast, cold weather, receiving an energy bill, poor diet, e-cigarettes, stress, or living in the west coast of Scotland. Every reason was given for why you may have a heart attack. Every reason except the most obvious one. The one that causes myocarditis and could explain why so many footballers and athletes keep collapsing all of a sudden. Best get their excuses in early. And here are a list of adverse reactions to the Pfizer jab from the documents the FDA wanted sealed until 2097. Not a peep from the mainstream media. And if heart attacks Weren't enough for you? Guess what? Everybody's got AIDS.
Everyone has AIDS. My grandma and my dog go blue. AIDS, AIDS, AIDS. The Pope has got it and so do you. AIDS, 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 come on everybody, we got quilting to do. AIDS, AIDS, We're gonna break down these barricades. Everyone has AIDS, 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 AIDS.
With the pandemic narrative faltering, it was time for the media and government nudge units to start pushing new reasons to be fearful. And by mid-February, the boffins down at the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization came up with this. AIDS. Yes, everybody's got AIDS. AIDS is back in vogue. And not just the jab-induced AIDS either, as some experts have speculated. That's just a myth, and has been fact-checked by trusted fact-checkers such as PolitiFacts and AP, and they concluded that there is no link between HIV or AIDS and the COVID-19 vaccines. Just like there is no link between blood clots or myocarditis and the COVID-19 vaccines. And just like there is no link between Big Pharma and the fact checkers. Yes, you could have AIDS and not know it. A little bit like unconscious bias, where you could be a Nazi and not even know it. Fortunately, top ginger whinger and AIDS expert Professor Harry Windsor was able to give us the benefit of his professional advice.
Every single one of us has a duty, or at least an opportunity, to get tested ourselves to make it easier for everybody else to get tested. And then it just becomes a regular thing like anything else. But if we're not getting tested and we're like, oh, HIV, that's not that. How could that possibly affect me? That's affecting, people over there. And it's like, no, it could affect you. Just know your status.
So know your status, plebs, and get tested. And now that the pandemic narrative is failing, what can the elites possibly come up with next to instill fear and mass formation psychosis on humanity and help usher in a social credit system and digital slavery, central bank, digital currency, and global digital ID? War. War. War.
Yeah. What? Absolutely nothing.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Unvaccinated people around the world breathed a collective sigh of relief as their persecutors are now being trained to hate the Russians. The mask-wearing devotees of the Church of Covidian have now got something new to virtue signal to and vent their outrage on. Did Putin invade Ukraine because of white privilege? This tweeter seems to think so. Or did he have the wrong mother?
And whatever your story, Mr. President Putin, I can't imagine how it feels in your heart, but I know if I was your mother, that would be a start.
If I was your dad, Putin, my lad, I'd say with disdain, it's wrong to invade, you prick. Join us after the break. welcome back. And in nonce news, Jean-Luc Brunel, the former model scout who had been accused of trafficking underage girls to fellow nonce Jeffrey Epstein, was found dead by hanging in his prison cell in La Santé, Paris. Despite 6 prison patrols and being under near constant suicide watch, the French nonce managed to hang himself, just like fellow nonce Epstein. The CCTV cameras were switched off at the time. The family of Ghislaine Maxwell was said to be shocked by Brunel's death and feared for her safety. In December of last year, Maxwell was found guilty of sex trafficking minors, but weirdly enough, no one seems to know who she trafficked minors to. Brunel's death came just days after Prince Andrew agreed to settle Virginia Giuffre's lawsuit, accusing him of sexual abuse after they allegedly met through Maxwell and Epstein. In the speculated settlement of £12 million, which he borrowed from his mum, there was no admission of liability by Andrew, because it is perfectly normal to give £12 million to someone you've never met before. And this in Scotland. And in the UK, the head of the Metropolitan Police and one of the worst chief commissioners Londoners have ever had to endure, Krishinda Dick, was forced to resign by London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And not before time either.
Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks. Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks. Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks.
And now, the weather where you are.
Yeah, man, hey. Hello there. Here is your News for Youth weather report. Congratulations. Yeah, man, we've made it through this storm, but we are in the eye of the hurricane. More storms, more clouds on the horizon. But hold fast, hold the line, and don't worry about the thing. Every little thing gonna be alright, man. Yeah, man. Hey, now back to you in the studio. Yeah, man.
Peaceful freedom marches continued throughout the month of February. In France, the UK, Germany, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the USA, Spain, Portugal, Holland, Switzerland, Austria, and many more countries against the vaccine passports. Obviously, the mainstream media won't tell you. So here's a News for You's montage. Our pleasure.
Honk, honk. Honk, honk. Honk, honk. Honk, honk.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Goodbye.
The show is over. Thank you.